day, Coach Jude. My name is Earl R.B. Santiago from BSN English Manay, and today, um, me and my group will present to you our video presentation on Module 1 of Fed 5. Now, I'm going to start off with the characteristics of learner-centered teaching. Now, there are 5 characteristics of learner-centered teaching. So I'm going to start off with learner-centered teaching engages students into the hard, messy work of learning. On any given day, in most classes, teachers are working much harder than students. That's that's because back then it was teacher-centered. Now we are going or more focused on learner-centered. We are prioritizing the students the, over the teachers. Now, the second characteristic is learner-centered teaching includes explicit skill instruction. Now, learner-centered teachers teach students how to think, solve problems, evaluate evidence, analyze arguments, generate hypotheses, but the learning skills essential to mastering material in the discipline. All those learning skills are essential to mastering the discipline. Now, with the third characteristic, learner-centered teaching encourages students to reflect on what they are learning and how they are learning it. Now, they challenge students' assumptions about learning and encourage them to accept responsibilities for decisions that they make about learning, like how they study for exams, when they do assigned reading, whether they revise their writing or check their answers. Now, with the fourth characteristics, uh, learner-centered teaching motivates students by giving them some control over learning processes. Now, learner-centered teachers search out they search out ethically responsible ways to share power with students. Now, with the final characteristics, which is learner-centered teaching encourages collaboration. Now, learner-centered teachers work to develop structures that promote shared commitments to learning. Now, I'm going to give it on to my group mates.
Philosophical perspective. Teacher-centered philosophies, essentialism, is an American philosophy of education which begins in the 1930s and 1940s and was introduced by William Bagley. The two origins of essentialism are from idealism and realism. It is often called traditionalism or conservatism. It is an educational theory that believes that the purpose of schooling is to impart necessary knowledge, skills, and attitudes to enable young people to function as fully developed human beings in the modern world. Essentialism basically teaches the basic subject or the core curriculum. Perennialism is the most conservative, traditional, or flexible philosophy. It is largely a product of Aristotle's rationalism and its subsequent treatment by Thomas Aquinas. It assumes that man's or basic essential characteristic is his ability to reason. Only through reason can man understand existence and how he is required to live. Perennialists believe that one should teach the things that they believe are of everlasting importance to all individuals everywhere. Educational philosophy suggesting that nature, including human nature, is constant and schools should teach content and topics that have withstood the test of time. Tulio 2008. Learning centered philosophies. Progressivism. The proponents of this philosophy are William Kilpatrick and John Dewey. Progressivism emphasizes the concept of progress, which asserts that human beings are capable of improving and perfecting their environment. Progressivists believe that people learn from what they consider most relevant to their lives. Students learn best when they pursue their own interests, satisfying their needs. In other words, learning by doing. Curriculum is built on the needs, experience, abilities, and interests of students. 2008 of Tulio. Humanism is a student-centered philosophy that focuses on enhancing one's innate goodness, rejects the idea of group-oriented education, and upholds the idea of enhancing individual development. This philosophy also believes that students should be actively involved in their education on all levels, and students should be able to make choices about what they will be learning. The purpose of humanism is to create interest in all spheres of life. Believes learning is viewed as a personal act to fulfill one's potential. Believes in the necessity of studying a person as a whole, particularly as they grow and develop over lifespan. Constructivism refers to the idea that learners construct knowledge for themselves. Each learner individually and socially construct meaning as he/she learns. It suggests that learners should be active participants in learning activities, that learning should be guided rather than presented by teachers, and that interaction and discussion are critical components of the learning process. Learning happens when students combine new and old ideas. However, learning occurs if students are actively engaged. It is also a learning theory that equates learning will create meaning from experience.
Good day, everyone. Before we move to the next topic, let's have first the summary of the topic that Mr. Arcelius discussed about the supporting research. Qualitative examination of learner-centered teaching. This research by the team Brackenbury from Bowling Green State University explores the connections between learner-centered teaching and significant past learning experience. The study likely delves into how these experiences influence teaching practices and students' engagements. Teacher efficacy and characteristics on teaching effectiveness. Conducted by Carlo Magno at De La Salle University, Manila. This study examines the impact of teachers' efficacy and characteristics on teaching effectiveness, performance, and the adoption of learner-centered practices. It probably investigates how teachers' beliefs and attributes shape their instructional approaches. Next is the impact of learner-centered teaching on learner skills and strategies. Maria Angeles Daro Hinosorango and Amparo Bedual Dinagsao from Mindanao, University of Science and Technology, Philippines, assess the impact of learner-centered teaching on students' learning skills and strategies. This study may examine how such teaching methods influence students' ability to acquire and apply knowledge effectively. Next is the student-centered learning for increased motivation and achievement. Student-centered learning as a strategy to enhance motivation and achievement. This research likely explores how shifting the focus to students' needs and interests can positively impact their academic performance. The next is the learner-centered classroom. Practices and assessment. Barbara L. McCombs and colleagues likely discuss the benefits of learner-centered classroom practices and assessments in maximizing student motivation, learning, and achievement. This study probably explores various instructional strategies and assessment methods aligned with learner-centered approaches.
Hey everyone, I am Arhanem Tangkapa and I will going to discuss about the topic that assigned to me. But before I'm going to discuss the topic that was assigned to me, I am going to give you a short summary about what Maricardo Imba discussed. About the resistance, to change and managing the shift. It is a human nature to counteract any changes, but change is inevitable. The reason why people resist to change is because it's not an easy transition, and there as the fear of the unknown students resist learner-centered approaches for a variety of reasons. The four most common reasons students resist learner-centered approaches are learner-centered approaches are more work, learner-centered approaches are more threatening, learner-centered approaches involve losses, learner-centered approaches may be beyond students. And that is my short summary about what Maricardo Imba discussed. That is resistance to change, managing the shift. And now I am going to discuss the topic that assigned to me, and that is source of faculty resistance. The objectives that colleges raise come primarily from two sources. The objective find the approaches enormously threatening learner-centered approaches. Test a teacher's level of self-confidence. They deal with issues of power and authority. They take us away from an exclusive reliance on content expertise and move us into the new or unfamiliar domain of learning skills. They raise questions about common instructional practices. Faculty is the term for academic staff at an institution of education. In primary and secondary schools, the faculty are teachers whereas in post-secondary institution, professors comprise the faculty. Faculty can also include researchers, scholars, and lecturers, depending on the schools or university. The act of the power of resisting, opposing, or withstanding the opposition offered by one thing, force, etc. to another. Some colleges resist for much more objective reason. They are concerned about what these approaches do diminish the amount of content in course. Let students set our policies, devote class time to developing learner skills and awareness, employ rules and requirements, and involve students in assessment activities. For many faculty, these are radical ideas and they raise quite legitimate questions about them. This is why it is important for those using these approaches to understand something of the empirical, theoretical, and experiential basis on which they rest, and as what with some kind of student resistance, these are objections for the right reason. There are many questions we can answer, and they provide us opportunities to inform, educate, and move more faculty forward in their thinking about learning and kind of teaching that promotes it. Strategies in dealing with faculty resistance. Number one, faculty resistance. Number one is be mindful of the politics. Number two is use the anatomy of your classroom. Number three is do not seek to convert the masses. And number four, document the impact of your approaches. And lastly, number five, find like-minded colleges. Students and faculty resistance will keep us honest about what we are doing and why. It helps to see it positively. The rub that reminds us to continue exploring the theory and the research. As well as the experience of colleges, many of us will tell you that student resistance fades and then gone. Well, before that of colleges, lots could be said of that, but the net effect is that once students get on board, there really is not turning back. They will move forward despite the objections and resistance of some colleges by Wilmer M. 2002. So that is my report.
Hi, good day to all, especially to you, Ma'am Coach Jude Martinez. I am Marie-Claire Mabola from Study Hall 9, BS at English 1A. And right now, I am going to discuss the dimensions of learner-centered teaching. So what is dimensions of learner-centered teaching? The learner-centered teaching method shifts the focus of activity from the teacher to the learners. These methods include active learning in which students solve problems, answer questions, formulate questions of their own, discuss, explain, debate, or brainstorming during class. Learning dimensions are cluster of attitudes, values, and disposition rather than capabilities or skills. They frame the way you approach a new learning opportunity. Now, there is 5 dimensions of learning-centered teaching. Weimer explains that in order to be learner-centered, instructional practice needs to exchange in 5 key areas. So what are they? So the first is the function of content. Content includes building a knowledge base, how the instructor and the students use the content, level to which students engage content instructor. Allow students to memorize content. Instructor encourage students to transform and reflect on most the content to make their own meaning of it. The second is the role of the instructor. The role of instructor goes beyond transmitting knowledge, as they take on the responsibility of facilitating active learning experiences for the learners. At the same time, learner take on a more proactive role influencing course, content, and activities and actively reflecting on their learning. And the third is the responsibility for learning. Responsibility for learning should rest with the students. Instructor assumes all responsibility for students' learning, provides content to memorize, does not require students to create their own meaning of content, tells student exactly what will be on examinations. The fourth is the purposes and processes of assessment. Assessment for learning is an approach to teaching and learning that creates feedback which is then used to improve students' performance. Students become more involved in the learning process and from this gain confidence in what they are expected to learn and what standard. And the fifth is the balance of power. The balance of power shifts so that the instructor shares some decisions about the course with the students, flexibility of course policies, assessment methods, learning methods, and deadlines. Instructor mandates all policies and deadlines. Instructor does not adhere to policies. Centered learner gives students the opportunity to decide 2 things: what material they learn and how they learn it. This concept is also sometimes refers to as personalized learning. In contrast to teacher-centered approaches, engages students as leaders and decision makers in their own learning. In student-centered learning, that teachers is still the classroom authority figure. However, they function as more of the coach or facilitator while students embrace a more active and collaborative role in their own learning. Inductive teaching and learning, in which students are first presented with challenges. Inductive method includes inquiry-based learning, case-based instruction, problem-based learning, project-based learning, discovery learning, and just-in-time teaching. Learner-centered methods have repeatedly been shown to be superior to the traditional teacher-centered approach to instruction, a conclusion that applies whether the assessed outcome is short-term mastery, long-term retention, or depth of understanding of course material, acquisition of critical thinking, or creative problem-solving skills, formation of positive attitudes toward the subject being taught, or level of self-confidence in knowledge and skills. And that will be all for my topic. Thank you for listening.